the dangers for the alternative media of here and no further.
There's now a very influential, if not powerful, group of people across a wide spectrum discussing what those elites are up to, right? We even, I think, have elites of our own. I can't be certain, but Musk doesn't look like he's on their team to me.
He's not on their team.
That's what I think.
Well, he's insanely wealthy and independent and an actual legitimate genius in a world of fools. He gets out of line every now and then. He gets a little wacky.
He does.
But he's fun.
He's restless.
He's a fun guy to have at the helm.
I'm thinking of instituting an award for all those young women who are healthy, who are capable of having a child, but choose not to have one. Whether you realize this today or not, you think the problem is parking, you think the problem is garbage, you think the problem is healthcare. No, the problem is population. There is no other problem.
We need a great reset.
All the religious groups are against me because I'm talking about population. They want more souls. I want less on the planet.
I would say that nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does. There's a far higher, bigger picture going on the earth for at least 7,000 years.
It's only going to get weirder. The level of contradiction is going to rise excruciatingly, even beyond the excruciating present levels of contradiction. I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. And at that point, novelty theory can come out of the woods, because eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's just too nuts. It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. So between now and 2012, the next 14 years, I look for the invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, possible human immortality, and at the same time, appalling acts of brutality, genocide, race baiting, homophobia, famine, starvation, because the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed. We can put up with about anything, and it's a good thing because we're going to be tested to the limits. The breakdown of anything, and this is why the right wing is so alarmed, because what they see going on is the breakdown of all tradition, all order, all sanctioned norms of behavior. And they're quite right that it's happening, but they're quite wrong to conclude that it should be resisted or is somehow evil. The mushroom said to me once, it said, this is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars.
Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. The Inspired Mantra. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you for tuning in on X, Rumble, and YouTube. Live chat's going wild already. I know this was quite the intense intro, but I think it really painted the picture well. Welcome, everybody. LeBeau, Ronnie, our new moderator. Ronnie's been with us since the beginning, and she recently started moderating the live chat, and she's doing an amazing job. So please give a lot of love to Ronnie, who's amazingly assisting Christine and kind of having the overview. And she's a pro, right, honey? Yeah. Way more than I am. Well, she's a seasoned pro, Ronnie. Thank you. Thank you so much, dear friend. Grierson is here. Where's Wendy? P.S. Hello there. Renata is here. I saw Jim earlier. Annie, Regina, Jim, good to see you, my friend. Coco Vanderbilt, and so many others. All right, let's dive into it, friends. The Great Awakening is real. We talk about it a lot, and I think, we have been activated to truly get through all of this together and mainly thrive through this together. And as real as the Great Awakening is, the fake awakening is just as real, and it is happening as well. And this show today will build on what we started yesterday when we talked about certain things that are essential to sovereignty and freedom. So I want to quickly talk about what I deem to be the fake awakening and why it is so important to at least have a rudimentary understanding of what is going on. So before the year 2020, there was a movement, and that movement had already been partially infiltrated and hijacked. Like every movement in history, if it wasn't created, if a movement was not created from the start by the opposing forces, by humanity's opposing forces, it was always hijacked. And unfortunately, you go back and you research stuff like Tavistock Institute, you research the hippie movement, the Christian revival movement in the 60s and 70s, and you realize the rock and roll movement, the counter-revolution movement, you realize that all these things were born and birthed in institutes, in three-letter agencies, and carefully crafted. And this is part of our awakening, is that we realize that even to a large degree, the rebellions that came before our generations were steered, were controlled, and had a very precise beginning and an end, which almost always points to it was fake to begin with. And I'm sorry to say that, because within those fake movements were always real people with real hearts, real intentions, real thoughts. And this is what the opposing forces really comprehend, because they've been at it for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They have perfected the game. So they know that human resistance and rebellion will always happen. So rather than trying to stop it from happening, they are creating the resistance movements so that people and their need to rebel and their need for freedom and their need for free thought is catered to, but only to a certain degree. And so before 2020, the alternative media, the freedom movement, the truth movement, the truther movement, which really had its inception in this form right after 9/11. So before that, it was a completely different thing. After 9/11, it started becoming a truly worldwide movement of individuals who used for the first time these incredible tools at hand, right? The internet, video editing software that was freely available, stuff that they didn't have before. Before, you needed to have money and the crew and editing space and camera crew and all of that. And now all of a sudden, people had the ability to use the open access to internet and those tools to bring out information. And with that, there was a wildfire that was spreading all around the world. And there were attempts to hijack these movements, but it was fairly scattered. It was disorganized, which kind of helped. But then 2020 came. And 2020 brought the great shift. And in the beginning, like I've said so many times, in the beginning of 2020 and then 21, that period of a year and a half, there was an incredible synergy from people that came from all awakening movements, whether that was from the political side, the financial side, the spiritual side. It didn't matter, medical, health, everybody was getting together for one singular purpose: freedom. Because all of a sudden people were locked down, all of a sudden people were banned from gathering, people were banned from worshiping, going to church, synagogue, whatever. People couldn't put on their events. They were literally banned from opening gyms and health stores and whatnot. And this shock event that happened to all of us all at once, to varying degrees, of course, created a coherence in the movement that we've never seen before. So for about a year and a half, there was coherence in the movement like never before. And everybody rooted for freedom. That was all that mattered. Get the truth out as good as we can and root for freedom. And then you could see something happening that we've also never seen like that before. It was the mainstreamification, I just made up a word, the mainstreamification of the alternative media. So now you had these highly professional networks with highly professional teams and crews that came in, that hijacked the subjects, brought about 50% truth and then 50% complete fakeness. And I'm not saying that all the podcasters and speakers and presenters and authors are consciously a part of it. There is a power group behind this that is a mixture of the international conglomerates and organizations, of the intelligence community, that is driving. And what they have done so greatly, they have picked charismatic speakers and leaders who were semi-awake, and they pushed them to the forefront. They brought them into the spotlight of this arena. And because they talked about forbidden subjects enough, the people were attracted to them. But then when it came to, okay, so where does this lead us? Where does it lead to? What does this truth tell us about the greater picture? When that started to happen, you could see that these speakers, leaders, podcasters, authors were not allowed to go any further. As a matter of fact, they were instructed to ridicule anyone who does, to ridicule certain notions. And so, you could see this in the medical movement, where a lot of these supposed rebels and freedom thinkers were saying how bad the C-19 thing was, right? The Beetlejuice, as Frank Jacob calls it, but at the same time didn't acknowledge everything that came before it. Couldn't acknowledge that the entire medical field was constructed carefully as a counter movement to real healing, real health, holistic, natural, energetic approaches, that it was entirely constructed to bring down the health levels, to dumb us down, to bring us down, to keep us addicted. So they couldn't go there. They weren't allowed to go there. And to this point, they're only tapping their little toe into this pool of truth, because their funding, their money, their support comes from those communities. So the fake awakening is basically taking advantage of your curiosity, your newfound openness, your newfound will and desire to research and to learn and to go deeper. And it's taking that, and it's slowly but surely turning it a little off the right direction. And 2 degrees off of true north will get you somewhere completely different in the long run, right? If you're aiming for true north and somebody gets you to just steer away for 2 degrees, you're going to end up somewhere completely different. And this is what this is about. The fake awakening is literally to catch people at the outer edge and pull them back in and say, okay, yes, there's a lot of things that were wrong. Yes, a lot of things in history we didn't get right. Yes, some of the villains were heroes and some of the heroes were villains. But here's the thing. Ultimately, we still have functioning institutions. Ultimately, there's a system in place that we simply need to tweak and fix a little. Ultimately, we still need to vote for our leaders. We still need to support democracy. We need to fix the justice system and put the right people in. And so they're bringing people back into the picture. when people have clearly seen that the system wasn't corrupted over time. It's not like the system was, oh, it's just gotten worse and worse. No, that's exactly what this system was designed to do. Every bad thing that you can observe in our systems today, they were exactly designed that way. It's not by accident. It's not because corrupted people got in. The justice system is not, it's not that it's gotten corrupt because bad judges and attorneys and bad secretaries of justice and whatnot. No, this is exactly what it was supposed to do. What is being unveiled, what is being unveiled, what is being shown to people now is simply the truth that's always been there. It was never about fairness. It was never about justice. It was never about righting wrongs, ever. It was never about. And people who have studied this in depth, and I'm one of those people, I mean, the legal and the law systems, I've studied to, for years and years and years, and I can tell you this is what it was designed to do. The economic system, the financial system, it's not that banks have gotten corrupt and that corrupt financial systems, and it was all designed this way. The financial system is designed to transfer real value and real wealth, the way that we perceive it in this matrix, from the little man, if you will, to the self-appointed elite. That's all that it's supposed to do over a course of 80 to 120 years. That's what these transfer of wealth systems do. So we could go on and on and on about what each of these systems actually is, but there's a higher principle at work, that in order to captivate human perception, in order to captivate our awareness, in order to get our attention, they created all these fields and disciplines and languages and categories and boxes. So you would find those that fit for you and spend your life in there, never asking the bigger questions, or when you ask the bigger questions, you're just pushed into a new box. And this is where the huge difference between the real and the fake awakening comes in. And I wrote this down for you guys so we could kind of get a better grip on this, okay? So the real awakening is about breaking free from the matrix, from the illusion that's been carefully constructed by those who wish to control us. It's about seeing the world as it truly is, not as we've been conditioned to see it. The real awakening is a deep, profound shift in consciousness where you begin to understand the true nature of reality, the manipulation that's been going on for millennia, and how every aspect of our lives has been orchestrated to keep us in a state of ignorance, fear, and division. And this is a hard pill to swallow. I'll tell you why. Because good people entered the field of medicine. They became doctors. They studied medicine. And their heart was led astray from where it actually wanted to go. Every child that I know that wants to be a doctor usually has some illness in the family that they suffered from watching their loved ones suffer from that illness, or they had an illness themselves, or they were just in a field where they wanted to help people. And they thought, oh, if I become a doctor, I can help heal people. I can help make this better. Literally every kid is like that wants to become a doctor. And then they go through the schooling system, and slowly but surely, they are being indoctrinated and programmed into the field. By the time they get out of university, by the time they get out of medical school, by the time that they have their first year at a hospital, 97, 98, 99% of them have forgotten the real reasons as to why they got in it. The field is so fake, so false. There are some good people in it, and there are some very helpful procedures in it, which is the minority of what's in the medical field, but that does exist. But here's the thing. If you spend your life 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years doing something, following guidelines, following the instructions that you received, and overriding your better judgment over and over again, at a certain point, there is an identity crisis. And that's where people start to either ignore what is happening on the inside, or to start self-medicating, to start drinking, to start doing drugs, they start doing all kinds of things so they don't have to face that. So the real awakening isn't simply just an airy-fairy, unicorny, rainbowy, beautiful experience where you wake up one morning and finally you realize there's a much higher self, there's a much higher level of consciousness. You've been trapped in this perceptual body avatar world, and all of a sudden everything's good. That's not how it is at all. It's a painful process because you're losing people, you're losing habits, you're losing beliefs, you're losing perceptions, you're losing your freaking mind. But you have to. There's no other way. If you really want to awaken from the illusion that what this is real. And the more you can step away from it, the more you can take a 40,000 foot view, the more you can see the freaking insanity of it all. It's insane. The things that we do, the things that we accept, the things that we overlook in order to keep conformity, to keep convention, to keep tradition, is utterly insane. That's why over 60% of the population, or 70s, on some sort of medication that alters their state of perception, that alters their biochemical states, that alters or puts a huge buffer between them and their true feelings and perceptions. This is how insane it has become. This is why more than half of the population is obese. And we could go on and on and on about the effects of that. But the truth is that real awakening means that your former self, your former perceptions, your former beliefs, your former habits, your former relationships are dying. And it can't be any other way. You can't live in this world, believe it to be real, and at the same time awaken. There's a very sophisticated intellectual understanding of these wannabe elites that we have an intrinsic desire to feel authenticity, to feel a spiritual connection. They know this. They've studied us. They know we seek it no matter what dark hole we're locked into. We seek that. We seek that higher thing because we know it's our home. And that's why we seek it. They are artificially creating experiences and movements that mimic that experience, but it's not real. Let's go a little further here. The real awakening is about seeing through the lies, the propaganda, and the false narratives that the mainstream media, governments, and corporate entities feed us every day. And they do this through little sub-organizations that look like rebel organizations, by the way. It's about connecting with your true self, your infinite consciousness that transcends this physical world, and understanding that you are more than just a body and a mind. You are consciousness experiencing a brief moment in a physical form. On the other hand, the fake awakening is the counterfeit version. It's the one that's been engineered by the very system we're trying to break free from. It's the awakening that's fed to you through trendy social movements, shallow spirituality, and surface-level activism that keeps you locked in the very same cycle of control. The fake awakening makes you believe you're enlightened because you follow the latest woke or awake trends, or participate in socially accepted forms of dissent, but in reality, you are just playing another part in their game. The fake awakening is designed to make you feel like you're part of a revolution, when in truth, it's another layer of the illusion, a trap to keep you from digging deeper, from questioning the core of the system itself. It's the placebo that distracts you from the real work of deprogramming yourself and seeing the world for what it is truly is, a carefully constructed prison of the mind. This is literally a hard pill to swallow. I won't deny that. We want to think that this is a beautiful world, that this is a wondrous space. And the caveat here is that we can create this. We can have a good experience while we're here. We have those co-creator powers. But in order to tap into those co-creator powers, you need to truly experience a real awakening that goes beyond the boxes. Listen, if you have been led to believe that one party is the real thing and the other party isn't, or that one movement is actually real and the other one isn't, this is all a game. Republican, Democrats, blue, red, it don't matter. They're walking in the same direction with simply a different flavor. And that's what they're doing. And you have to see that the apparatus was put in place such a long time ago. It knows every play in their book. It knows them by heart. They invented them. What it cannot deal with is the exponential power that comes from true awakening. That's what it cannot deal with. That's what it will try to stop at all costs, or at least distract you from it. And so one of the biggest movements of the last years, I've talked about this, always get flack. I don't care. I give a shit. One of the biggest movements of the last years that has had some of the best and some of the worst effects on people was the Q movement, the Q drops that, and we could go in depth about what happened after maybe February of 2018 onward, what happened before. If you study deeper, you might find some different patterns, whatnot. Here is the gist of it. Like I said before, the opposing forces know that you have an intrinsic need to feel something truthful and authentic. So they give you just enough. They give you just enough. But then when you want to go too far, they try to reel you back in. They try to reel you back in because ultimately we are their energy source. And to keep us in a certain vibrational state, make sure that their reality continues to exist. So I'm not saying that a lot of people, through the drops and studying and talking and exploring, didn't actually find the exit. Yes, they did. But way more people were simply pushed into another box. The trust the plan. The whiteheads are in control. Patriots have it all. I can, all the phrases. Where we go one, we go all. That there's this holier than thou group, and that despite all the suffering, the dying, despite everything, that their intentions are pure and beautiful, and that what we see actually is not at all what is happening, but it's the exact opposite. It only appears to be that way because we're watching a movie. This is a carefully constructed psyop. A very carefully constructed psyop, like most of the others, by the way. Listen, the real awakening process transcends any trends. It transcends parties, political systems. It transcends any human-made system. As a matter of fact, it realizes that all of these are carefully constructed illusions to keep us in a perpetual loop. Thank you for your contribution. And this is where most people, especially if they've lived a life, if they've lived 50, 60, 70 years, and they've contributed, they've filled out the forms, they paid their taxes, they paid their dues, they kept their heads down, they showed up for work, they sacrificed time with their family, they sacrificed so much because they were told that's how it is. I get that. I get that that is painful to acknowledge, that we've been had for a long time. But if we don't do it, and if we don't allow ourselves to cry every now and then, to grieve over the loss of this belief, to get mad and get angry, but transmute this into something positive, we need to go through these motions. We need to go through these motions. We're living in a construct. And the reason why I know this is a construct is not simply the scientific stats or the historic stats. You could go at this from many different directions. There are scientists that are transcending their disciplines and are finding evidence. This is all a plasma-filled hologram. Like, that's one end of it. And then there's the other spectrum of it. There's people like Jason Brashears from Archaics who goes and studies patterns and finds patterns of resets and whatnot. So there's multiple ways to look at this. But it all leads to the inevitable conclusion that we are in a constructed reality that does not entail all that is, all possibility, that is a tiny spectrum of what is actually possible, and that we are by our very nature infinite beings who are trapped in this smaller perceptual state. But how do we know this? Why do we feel this? And why do so many of us feel this? Why do we have a memory of a state of being that we've never experienced in this lifetime? How can we remember something that is more expanded and free and creative and beautiful and light? How can we remember that when we never experienced it? And yet we do. Yet we do. As a matter of fact, all of our seeking, all of our searching, all of our questioning comes from that place. It wants us to remember. It wants us to remember who we really are, and that this is not really where we come from or where we're destined to be. There's a deep intrinsic memory. And I've seen this. We have guided hundreds of people through guided experiences and journeys and meditations, if you will. And I can tell you, it is so easy when people open up to help them find that place again, because we all remember it. We all suffer from the heaviness here. We all suffer from the density. We all suffer from the slowness. We all suffer from the huge buffer between our created thought and the actual manifestation of it. We all suffer from that. Why do we suffer from that? Because it's not natural to us. It's not natural to us. If it was natural to us, we wouldn't suffer. We wouldn't question. We wouldn't seek. We wouldn't search. We would just accept that this is it, which is what the masses do. The masses do that. They're so programmed, or are not real to begin with, and some are not real to begin with in terms of spirit. That's what they do. They simply follow the program. And to them, you, the searcher, the awakener, the needle that tries to burst or bubble, you are the enemy. You are the contrast that they don't want to see. And you are also the contrast that the dark opposing forces don't want you to be. They don't want you to positively influence others. They don't want you to find the exit. And so they create a whole fake movement. It's not hard to do. You look at the real thing and you create an imitation that only contains 50% of that energy, not 80, 50, only half of it, just enough to appear real on the surface. And then you listen to these folks, to these pushed speakers that are everywhere, to the Jordan Petersons and the Brett Weinsteins and all those other people that are out there. And you listen, you really dig in and you go, what? No. What are you talking about? Because they are the controlled version of it. And they draw a hard line and they become aggressive when somebody challenges them on that hard line. They set their boundaries, and they say, if you go beyond that boundary, you are insane, you're a lunatic, you have lost touch with reality. But that's exactly what you need to do. You need to lose touch with reality that isn't reality. You will never see what there is to see if you don't lose your mind. Your mind that keeps the ones and the zeros in certain lines so that you can only see certain things. And have you ever experienced this? That you drive down the same road, you take the same path every single time you go to work or you go home, whatever, same route. And all of a sudden, one day, years in, you look to your right and said, I never knew this house was there. I've never seen this. I've never noticed this tree. I've never noticed this bush. Things that have been there always. You've never noticed them. All of a sudden, you see them. And you go, how could I not see this before? And this is happening to millions of people every day in their lives now. How could I not see this? How could I not know this? How could I not realize this? And this is what they're incredibly afraid of. Because the analogies that come from movies like The Matrix are not too far off. Yes, they are it's a drama production. It's cinematic. There's a lot of creative freedom in that, and of course a lot of misdirection too. But the ultimate image of we are that which powers this fake existence, this fake reality, is true. And it's really our programmed addiction to drama, to lower vibrational emotions, that feeds the engine, that feeds these demonic entities, that allows them to come closer and closer into this realm, that allows them to possess people. When you, for the first time, taste something that is real, that never leaves you. When you hear sound, I don't know how to explain this to you, but almost all the sounds that we hear throughout a lifetime are artificial. But when you're in a certain state of perception, when you are transcending your awakened, your awake state, your consciousness expands because of prayer or meditation, or when that happens, you can hear things and the sweetness of sounds that you can't otherwise hear, and you can see things, and most importantly, you can feel things that are inexplicable. Thank you so much for your contribution, Lainey, and her German shepherds. Love German shepherds. And that's what happens when consciousness doesn't give in to the boxes that are designed to keep it trapped. The thing is, these movements, these supposed freedom movements and speakers and these podcasters and shows that get millions and millions and hundreds of millions of views and exposure, they don't ask bigger questions. They provide a lot of conclusions. What is a conclusion? It is the end of something. It means that beyond this, there's nothing to explore. There is no freaking conclusion in this realm. There's only greater and greater exploration until we find the way out. The way out back into infinity, if you will. And so, if anyone tells you, here's the conclusion, this is it, we found it, we know it now, we know everything, we know who the elites are, we know who the forces are, and here's who you need to vote for to fix it, that's fake. That is fake. The real process of awakening asks bigger and bigger questions. And by asking bigger and better questions, your mind, and most importantly, your consciousness, automatically begins to expand, because that's the only way how it can find the answers. We don't find answers in books. And there's very few books you can find any answers in. We find answers by expanding our consciousness. And for that, we need to be willing to admit that we've been wrong before. If we can't admit to ourselves that we were wrong, that we participated in something that is inherently false, and acknowledge that truth, we can never transcend it. This is the only thing that they are incredibly afraid of. Because when our consciousness is free, when it expands beyond the limitations of human perception, the game ceases to exist. It's not that you make it to the next level. That's part of the fake teachings. Part of the fake teachings is to make you believe that there are all these levels that you need to reach, and that the all-loving infinite creator has created a system of 7 or 9 or 13 different levels that you need to go through, and you need to spiritually prove yourself, and you need to go through the karmic wheels of thousands and tens of thousands of incarnations. Forget all about it every single time you come in, and that is how it works. And then you finally are worthy to return to your infinitely loving creator. Makes no sense whatsoever. Thank you, Charlotte. Makes no sense whatsoever. So here's what I said to a friend of ours recently. We had a deep discussion. It was about 11 at night or whatever. And I asked our friend, I said, do you believe in karma? And our friend said 1000%. I said, do you believe in free will? She said, absolutely, I do. I said, well, could you use your free will to jump off the karma wheel? She said, I've never thought about that. Well, listen, if you have free will, there's either free will or there's none. There's no a little bit of free will. There's not a little bit of pregnant. No such thing. So if you do have free will, can you use your free will to transcend the program of karma? The spiritually induced belief that we need to consistently go through all these experiences and be and have the suffering over and over and over and over again. Can you use your free will to transcend it? Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And guess what? Our friend's life, just by asking herself the question, changed. And I say the same to you. If you have free will, and if you acknowledge that you have it, can you use it to transcend the spiritual programming that Earth is a school keep returning to? That you need to go through all these layers of lies and deception and suffering to mature spiritually, to be worthy of the next realm and the next realm and the next realm. Why? Why? What's the purpose? What's the point? And could it be that as much as we can find some truth in every religious practice, that the religious practices themselves are highly sophisticated programs to keep us following a pre-designed template and not break free to think, feel, experience, and explore for ourselves? Could it be that the Bhagavad Gita is a program, that the Bible is a program, that the Quran is a program, that the Talmud is a program, that the New Age Bibles are a program? That there is a clear and conscious plan behind all these teachings to entrap even the most freedom and spiritually minded. And could it be that you do not have to learn all the rules that seem so artificial, to study all the scriptures that seem so artificial, to observe things that make no sense to you whatsoever? Could it be that you could actually reach a level of true enlightenment without all of it? I have this discussion, as a matter of fact, quite regularly with highly religious people. You know, like some of our dearest friends are Christians, and they say, listen, Scripture is the truth. I mean, we've had a whole series on the end of religion as we know it. You know this. Scripture is the truth. And these are highly intelligent people that acknowledge that all aspects of human life have been at least manipulated, if not carefully created. And I go, so you acknowledge that we live in a world of fake information, fake news, fake institutions, fake everything, but this book is untouched, unchanged. It's the Word of God as given through an unknown number of authors in an unknown period of time in unknown languages, but it is the truth. And then I asked him the question, so what is the basic premise of these teachings? And he'll tell you, well, here are the commandments. Here's how you need to live. And if you live like that, and if you give your life to the Lord, if you give your life to Jesus, then you go to heaven. And I say, okay, so it is a virtuous life. It is a honest life. It is a life of service. I say, yeah. I said, so you're telling me that there's this wonderful kid on a Pacific island somewhere who's never heard of Christianity, Jesus, or the Bible, but lives exactly that way. Lives a life of service, has a pure heart of love, is honest, is truthful, is loving, is giving. But because he wasn't baptized or hasn't consciously said that he gives his life to Jesus, he will land in hell and he has no chance of going to heaven. There is no answer to that question whenever I pose it. And there is no more discussion moving forward. There's just, let's agree to disagree. But here is the thing. And this is just me personally. This is just my journey. Whatever safety that I made myself believe exists outside of me, I was proven that it doesn't. And all those experiences, whenever I thought, oh, this is the saving force here, there's a white knight here, there's something, some force, somebody, something that will take care of it for me. Whenever I believed that, life taught me that it's always been wrong and that it has always been within, and that when I really unleash and discover that inside of me, all is given, all has been given from the beginning. From the beginning, everything has been given. We've just forgotten about it. We've been manipulated to forget about it. We've been dumbed down, distracted, programmed, falsely educated, bombarded. And despite all of that, my friends, and here's the proof, despite all of that, despite all the toxins and the poisons and the electromagnetic frequencies, the manipulation, the lies, the deceptions, everything that they're throwing at us, you're still here. You're not just kicking, you're still exploring. You are realizing, seeing with real eyes who you really are. And that scares the shit out of them. It scares the living shit out of them that no matter what they throw at us, we don't stop. We don't stop because we're mighty and powerful. And that's what they're afraid of, that we remember that. Not for vengeance. A mighty and powerful being does not need vengeance. Because when a mighty and powerful being recognizes itself for that, it doesn't even exist in the same realm as evil does. It doesn't even exist in the same bandwidth of frequency. This is what they don't want you to know. And this is why they'll give you the most entertaining, the most charismatic, the most sophisticated teachers, podcasters, authors. They will package it so beautifully. They will use the same terminology that you and I use, but they will mean something vastly different by it. And they, behind the scenes, are carefully calculating every move. And they know all they have to prevent from happening is for critical mass to go through this real awakening process. That's all they need to do. They don't need majority. They need critical mass, 1%, 3%, who knows exactly, but somewhere in that range. So the reason why I'm even talking about this is because here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't want you to follow me. I don't want you to think that unless you hear my take on something, you won't be able to figure it out. I don't want you to think that I can give the truth to you. I'll speak the truth to the best of my ability every time I open my mouth. But don't for a second think that you are even remotely less capable, that we are, because we are on a platform on some sort of pedestal, and that we are to be followed. No, I never wanted that. I don't want that. It's false. It's a false belief. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a saint. I'm not a savior. None of that. But you are. You are. And how good it can get when you acknowledge that, and how good it can get when you look for Christ consciousness inside of you rather than somewhere out there. It's impossible for me to tell you how good it can get. But it can never really talk about or compare to the real thing. But it is an analogy. And I do think to a certain degree it can help us comprehend what I'm talking about here. For as long as you believe that what you are is this human being and you're having a human experience and there's this spiritual side of you and you have a soul and sort of this mainstreamy program, for as long as you believe that, you're kind of like this device, smartphone that isn't connected to the internet. It can still do some pretty cool things, right? I mean, smartphone is not connected to the internet. You can still do some pretty cool things with it. It has a fast calculator. Certain apps work without the internet. So it's pretty cool. But the moment that you hook it up to the internet, it becomes infinitely more powerful. As a matter of fact, it becomes something entirely different. it actually is a different device once it's hooked to the internet. Infinitely bigger, but same principle, is what happens to you when you reconnect with infinite consciousness, which is your true nature. And then all of a sudden, in an instant, you transcend all former limitations and you laugh at the limiting beliefs you held before. You actually laugh at how you could ever believe yourself to be so limited, incapable, small, whatever. Because you have, in consciousness, returned home. And this is all that any one of us wants to do. This is why we're here. This is why we gathered. We're using this monumental moment to regain that on a level that will bring so many humans out of this experience into the real thing, unlike anything that's ever happened before. This is why we're here, collectively speaking. This is what we're doing. So, yes, you can subscribe to the left-right boxes. You can go and vote for somebody you want to vote. You do whichever you want to do. But know this, that the real answers come from giving yourself permission to really waking up. That's it. And nobody can do it for you. No amount of information can do it for you. It's a conscious decision. All right, my friends. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being with us. I can't wait to scroll through the comments here, through the lively live chat. Thank you for your love, for your contributions, for your support, for your thoughts, for your comments. You are loved and greatly appreciated, and we will be back with you again very, very soon. Right now, you could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.